We are live. Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. I hope we're all doing really well today. I thought after today's no news, am I back up? I think I'm back up again. So OBS has done me really dirty today. So I can't see the live chat at the moment because I'm working on OBS. So what I thought would be really cool to do, and something that I have to say that when there are times like this, I tend to look back and I tend to reminisce. And I thought what would be really cool is to kind of see what we used to do, look back at some of the transfers over the years. You know, you can let me know if you remember those days, you know, what you thought of the signings at the time. If you're old enough to remember the signings, I'd be really interested to know all that. So sadly though, I don't have the chat, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves, and I can always read the chat later. So I don't know what's being said right now. I need to sort OBS out for that because I'm not having the best time with it today, if I'm being brutally honest. So where I thought we'd start is we'd look at the ins and the outs, and I think we're going to look at the significant ins and outs. And as the thumbnail says, this was the year where we received an absolute gift of Eric. Cantona was the absolute the god. He was the man. Just absolute legend of a player. And I just kind of thought we'd go through some of his stats. You know, you probably know how much he cost. And that sort of stuff. So I'd really love to know in the chat what you think about it. As I said, I can't. No, I do have my chat volumes low. Let me know if this is any better. How's that? And I actually can see the chat now. So let me know in the chat, and I'll hopefully this is a little bit higher. As I say, OBS is done me dirty today, so let's hope that this is better. Let me know in the chat. Awesome. It's Danny B. I hope you're doing well today. So I just thought it'd be something different, to be positive. To be positive, we need to look back at the past, and I just thought this would be really cool today. So Eric Cantona, the man, I was debating or not whether leaving this man to the last, but I just thought we all need to be cheered up. So I thought, why not start off with the guy that started off the dynasty, the guy that basically started it all off. Even though we did have a great team, and we can go through that team as well and talk about sort of where we were around that time, if you remember that time. So we can go through that team as well. So Eric, the man, the legend. So where did we get this guy from? So we got him from Leeds, and we got him for 1.2 million. I don't know what the current rates are on that, so I don't know what the equivalent to that would be. You know, I think obviously the market then was obviously low. I don't think Eric at the time was about 26, so he was coming into his prime years. I think he was. I don't think anybody knew. I think he was signed. I think Ferguson knew he was a good judge, but I don't even think he knew the impact that he would have on this club. And I for those of you who lived that time, for those of you who are around the same, I was about 10 around that time. I was 6 or 7 at the time. So you might have been aware roughly of the signing. I was about 10, and just I remember the signing, what I remember the most is probably the years after that. I remember just this swagger. I remember just him, like the collar up. I just remember that he used to kind of strut around the pitch. Just, and what really impressed me, and I don't think this can be really underplayed about how good he actually was. So you got to bear in mind that not only do you have this guy who was a legend on the pitch, but you're talking about a signing who come from Leeds, who went into a team of Schmeichel, Steve Bruce, Pallister, Irwin, Parker, Paul Ince, Mark Hughes, Robson was still there. And these guys were just legends of this club. You know, they were proper players. You know, they fought for the badge. You know, they were just proper old school hard men. And Cantona got into that team and just got their respect straight away. And there's not many characters in football. There's not many people who could walk into a team of that caliber, you know, and he was the missing piece. And you're talking about teams of today, so you fast forward to today, and the Cunhas. So the difference really is that Cantona was the missing piece. We had a fantastic team, Parker, but we just needed a player who was going to elevate us and bring us to a level which we'd never been before, to push us over the line. We'd previously lost to Leeds, and we went in there and we pretty much went and took their best players in a team in an era whereby that's what we did. If we wanted a player, we would go and take the player. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that was an era that we did, and we had an aura about us. Ferguson had an aura, and he needed that player to exude that on the pitch, and Cantona was that player. He wasn't a player, he was an era. For those of you who are too young, I sincerely I'm saddened that you didn't live that era, because that was amazing. So Cantona when he retired in 98, so I think it would have been about 31, devastated, absolutely gutted. I thought he could have played more, but you know, as almost he ended as he sort of started, was he didn't stay too long. He did what he needed to do, and then he left us. An absolute legend. Legend gets bandied around too much for this club. You know, when you got the likes of Fernandez being bandied around as a legend, you know, Eric was an absolute legend, and there are reasons for that. So he went on to he appeared for us 185 times, scoring 82 goals. Now, some people may say, well, actually, do you know what? He didn't necessarily play a ton of games. He played enough. Maybe, you know, he wasn't a out-and-out striker. He was that guy that sat behind the striker. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was going to be my next point to him. Assisted 63 times. Some of those assists were just amazing. But he did have a side to him. Absolutely had a side to him that made him him. And I think it was against Crystal Palace, where a spectator was giving him absolute grief. And I mean, there are obviously tells about what was said, and I don't necessarily agree with it. But he did do a kung fu kick on this fan, and subsequently I think got banned for 10 months. So he pretty much missed the whole year, and we definitely missed him. And then obviously on his return, it was just an absolute just an immense part. I've just got a big smile on my face, because you know, I was so glad that I was of an era, and I feel really bad for those for you guys now that kind of you don't have that. One thing I did forget at the start, I wanted to add in from the start was basically, let's have a look, see if I've got it. Yeah, I have. Was our kits. So I think it's really cool to start off with our kits. 92, 93 season. I had all these kits. I see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Transition over our kits. I absolutely love these kits. My preferred kit, I have to say, probably one of my favourite kits of all time. So I'd have two favourite kits of all time. Number one is that yellow and gold shirt. I remember being about 9-10, and I had that shirt. So the shirts used to come out around my birthday, and I remember that year I got that yellow and gold kit, and I got the shorts, and I got the socks, and that kind of stuff. And I just, for me, that was an absolute stonker of a kit. I mean, I don't know what your favourite kits are in the chat. I personally don't think that sharp logo, that kit, can be beaten. I absolutely love that kit. One of my favourite kits of all time. My other favourite kit was the 91 to 92 blue kit, the kind of blue triangles with the white on it. I still got it somewhere around, but that's sort of up in the loft, and it's like a small boy, so it's going to be, I might actually put them up there. I love those kits. So I pretty much had most of these kits, and I think this year was an exceptional year for football kits for our club. I love the laces on them, so this for me was an iconic era for kits. Now, the next signing. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to go through the sort of main signings that we made. And then some of the outs as well. So I'm not going to include loans in that as well, because there are a couple of players that were loans. Now I'm going to put a player up. If anybody in the chat knows who it is, I'll put it up first, and then let me know. Definitely up there with one of the best kits, yeah. But the blue triangle, yeah. I need to get one of those, 100%. The triangle kit, I'm with you on that one. That is my favourite. That is one of my favourite kits. I know a similar one came out 2-3 years ago. My daughter's got that kit, and that's one of her favourites as well. So I'm gonna try and get that kit. So I'm gonna put in the chat now. Well, I'm gonna put up another player, and this was our other signing of that year from Cambridge Town, Mr. Dion Dublin. Now, I remember signing him, and perfect. Yeah, it was. Yep. Yeah. Dublin. Is he back on screen yet? So, when we signed him, I remember that we basically had. I used to have a kind of magazine, like a it was sort of like a fanzine sort of thing. So I used to get them every month in the post. It was on like a video cassette, and he was the signing on that cassette. And I remember just signing him, and we signed him for £1 million, and we got him from Cambridge. Now he wasn't, and this surprised me, because with the with the annals of time, you look back and maybe you think players played for a club who was slightly better than they were. Now, I thought, and I had to look back on this one, that I thought he was a bit more prolific, and I thought he scored more goals, and I thought he did a bit more. And when we sold him to Coventry, which we did, I think we sold him to Coventry for 3 million. I like this player. I thought he was great. But when you look back, he actually only played appearances wise 17 times, and he only scored three goals. So he got sold in '98. He was here for a couple of years. Now I've looked back on those stats, and those are the ones that I can find. But it really didn't. And I think the reason why I look back on that, and I think he scored more goals for us, was because of what he did afterwards. You know, for the likes of Aston Villa, or when he went there, for Coventry as well. You know, he almost, I almost feel like he was the one that we missed. We were very fortunate with the players that we did sign, but I almost think that he was kind of nearly that player, but he probably had to move on. Stayed into '98, and then he moved to Villa. Just an absolute legend of the club. I really like Dion Dublin. Just an absolute shame. Actually, that he actually stayed till '94. Ignore me on that one. I've got the date that he went to Aston Villa. So actually, he did only stay into '94. So you are right on that one. I've got the wrong year down for that one. '94. So you are right there in the chat. I mean, I sort of thought that as well, actually, but I'm looking at the wrong date. Legend afterwards. So another player as an example whereby Ferguson was kind of right to sign the player. He had a really good eye. You know, I really like this player. But the fact that we made some money off of him, you know, the fact that we bought him for $1 million and sold him for 3 million, you know, these are deals that, you know, we used to do. That we used to buy players for a low sum and then sell them for a profit. Dion Dublin, absolute legend. Didn't he do Homes Under the Hammer as well now? So again, I love this player. Now another one of those players, like a nomad player who basically went around. He played for us twice, 1990 to 91, went on a free, and then came back 93 from Villa on a free again. Now I'd be really interested if you can have a guess who this is. I'll give you a clue. You try not to look at it, but he was a goalkeeper, and he basically kind of went back and forth for such a long time. And he was on and off of us, went to Villa, came back. You know, he was associated with this club till about 1994. Probably in one of the best, and I don't have it, I should have put this up, is one of the best goalkeeper tops of all time. It was like this purple one with, and Schmeichel, that sort of iconic green shirt as well. So if anybody can get it before I put it up, he kind of came to us, went to Aston Villa, kind of went around all over the shop, a goalkeeper. And we we got him on free, so I can't have to mention him on this one. He made 56 appearances in goal across a good 4 or 5 years, and we are talking about Les Sealey. I really like Les Sealey. One of those keepers who he was just really happy. He was just really happy, and that keeper top, I absolutely loved that keeper top. I think during the 90s, I don't know what you think about this. I think we absolutely bossed these keeper kits. Should have got the purple one up. I probably should have found the green one as well. But I like this top, Les Sealey. For me, again, he made 56 appearances, across different games. I had a lot of respect for this keeper. He was never going to be a world beater of a keeper, but back in the day where your number one was the number one, we were very lucky with Schmeichel. I had the green one back in the day. I loved that kit. There is a little bit of a I'm live, but I think there's about 60 seconds between what I'm saying and what I'm responding. So if you hear me respond after, it's because the chat's come through, and then it's about 60 seconds because of OBS. So Les Sealey, again, I don't think he retired quite late as well. I'm sure he sort of, I think he came. No, I'm thinking of someone else that we will talk about as well. Yeah, again, of an era whereby we had a load of goalkeepers who would be happy to sit there. So the likes of Van der Gaal. Man Latutu says that Schmeichel was terrible in penalties. You say that, but I'm going to put it into the chat. But the save in the semi, the save in the semi against Arsenal. So the save in the semi-final against the Gooners, the year that we won the treble. So Les Sealey, one of those goalkeepers, and even if you don't know who he is, just admire that goalkeeper top, because that is an amazing top. Les Sealey, I think he retired 2001 again. So he played a long time. I don't think there was only 1 year where somebody paid for him. So I think when he first came on the scene, in about 1983, so the year that I was actually born, and I think somebody only ever paid about 100k. So he only had loans, only went to people on a free. He played roughly about 481 games. So an absolute proper gent, really just I just love those kind of players who would, whenever they're called upon, they would just no attitude about them, just everything for the team. Just an absolute wonderful player. Now the next player, again, I'm gonna mention this player just simply because we paid for him. So what I'm going to try and do here is not sort of not going to mention players who were kind of on loan or but players that we paid for, that we bought, and even I don't know this player. So I if you do, you are one up on me. I don't remember this player whatsoever. So I'll give you a clue, and if you can get this, I'm super impressed. So he was a left back, centre back. We got him from Portadown under 21s. Now I had to look this up, to be fair. Yeah, so I was 16. So 99, I was just 16, and I remember that game like it was yesterday. That game was just. I remember that game. It was just unbelievable. And I can't wait to do the transfer year on that one as well. So the other player that we are talking about, if you don't know who he is, centre back, signed from Portadown under 21s for about 220k, and that was a player called Pat Gibbon. And we basically I don't even have a picture of him. Because that's how far he goes back. He made one appearance over a couple of seasons. But again, because we paid for him, about £220,000 for him. These are I think he was 19 when we signed him to go under the under 21s, and it's interesting because we can talk about that season as well, because don't forget, I didn't put this in the chat, so I didn't put it on the thumbnail because I think Cantona was the best, but this was the class of 92 season, and I wanted to put him on the thumbnail. So we basically got him. So we got Pat Gibbon, and then we loaned him out to Swansea. Now, Swansea City is my hometown, so big shout out to them. And then he kind of did loans and whatever else all the way up to about 97. So he was that that player that we signed. We did pay for him. Technically an under 21 player, kind of loaned him out. One of those players that didn't really make it. Probably what compounded that probably was the class of 92, all those players who came in and obviously just sort of stop those players who potentially could have done some good. So we ended up selling him for about 530k, which I don't think is too bad. So we always try to make a profit on a bunch of players. So before we go on to players who were sold, I don't have a screen for this one, but I'm going to go through some of the players in our team. And it'd be really interesting in the chat in 92-93 season how many of these players that you remember. I remembered a lot of them, but if you want to shout out some names in the chat as to the 92-93 season, so many that we get, I could probably name the majority, and I will accept the class of 92, because that's when they start to come into the team. That's when they start to come into the sort of senior team, like the youth that we have today. But obviously they went out on loan. Some of them did not, but I'll accept some of those class of 92. So I'll wait for OBS to catch up a little bit. So I'm going to go through it, and then I'm going to tell you some of my favourite players of those, and then we can go through those sorts of players who are out. Yes, he was. Apply in the chat. replying to that. So Danny B says, was Paul Parker still there? Big out to Paul Parker. He was one of my favourite players, and he actually lives round the corner from me. There's a Waitrose round the corner from me, and I've often seen him in there. Yes, so Danny B is coming up with these. So he's coming up for Irwin, Pallister, McClair. Oh, Danny, you are smashing it, my friend. You are smashing it. Absolute smashing it. Smashing it, buddy. Absolute brilliant. You are smashing it, my friend. So let's go through some of these players. So you may have forgotten that they've played for us, or you may not know that they were there at that time. So let's go through. I'm going to go through kind of some of the highlighted names, because otherwise, obviously, we could be here all day. So obviously in goal, Schmeichel, big Schmeichs. Absolute legend, as they've said in the chat there. That he wasn't the best on penalties, but obviously he made up for it in other ways. In my opinion, you may disagree with me on this one, but I always look back and I think of Schmeichel, Sharpie and Giggs. I always thought Schmeichel to be the first of the current sort of keepers. So you had like Oliver Kahn, Schmeichel, Paliuka, like those sorts of modern keepers, who kind of paved the way for the keepers. Now, so you're not really playing out from the back, but what I loved about Schmeichel is he commanded his box. If you were in his box, he would be screaming at you. He didn't care who you were getting out of that box, whether you liked it or not. And he wasn't, and he had a couple of fights with some players. I'm not saying that's right, but everything was kept in house. And I loved that about Schmeichel. He would try and get the ball out as fast as he could. His throws were great. I remember being up the park. I'm only 5'11", being in goal and sort of like in that green kit, trying to make some saves and pretending to be Schmeichel. Just an absolute legend. Les Sealey, as we said there, as well. So again, class guy, willing to do whatever for the team anytime called upon. Steve Bruce, again, centre back wise, warrior on the pitch. Pallister as well. What people don't get about Pallister is how quick he was. So Bruce, around that time, I think was about he was about 32. So Bruce was a little bit older. He was about 32 years old, and he was a bit older. So he's coming to the back end. He was coming to the back end of his career, and 32, sort of coming to the end of those prime years. And Pallister was 28, I think he was. Pallister was rapid, like really tall guy, really long, and people don't realise how quick he was. Pallister was really quick, and again, those two centre backs in those days. If you didn't live that era, those guys, and we can talk about Ferdinand, we can talk about like the Vidic and the Van Dijks, and I'm not saying that he was up there or they were up there with that, but of an era, I think they're very underrated for what they did and what they brought to the game. Lee Martin, again, he was kind of like he was that kind of backup left back, again, when called upon, he'd come in and play. I think he was around, again, I think mid-20s, around that time. Decent player. Don't really remember him being prolific in the team as such, but again, as time goes by, you remember things in different ways. Now, Cantona was the absolute legend, okay, of that team, and I think somebody's already mentioned it in the chat already. Is Dennis Irwin. I cannot express to you how amazing Dennis Irwin actually was. And we're talking about left backs and modern left backs, and people will obviously cite Roberto Carlos, and I'm not. He was a different player to him. And then you got the likes of Ashley Cole, and people will rave about him. Dennis Irwin could do. He could do anything. And ironically enough, he played for Leeds as well. Leeds back in the day were a really good team, and then we got him from Oldham, and we signed him, I think, for about 600k, something like that, and he stayed for 12 years. So he left on a free to go to Wolves in 2002. So between 1990, he didn't have the best first season, but after that we had him for 12 years, and Irwin was, in my opinion, when you were talking about 100%, Dennis Irwin, and you may disagree, depends on your era, depends sort of where you stand on it. Dennis Irwin, for me, was the best left back in Premier League. He played until 2002, and his free kicks were insane. His delivery of the ball, the way he used to run forward, track back, left foot, right foot. I'm not saying he was amazing with both feet, but he could do those sorts of things, and just defensively amazing, going forward amazing. The guy had everything. He was an unassuming guy who just was just the best, just absolute. I can't even tell you how amazing he was. And those of you who remember him, some people may remember him more because he played for so long, but prime Irwin was just there are no words really to describe him. So if you are too young, I just go back, search him out, look at him, because he was just an absolute quality of a player, just absolute amazing, and probably one of my favourite players of all time. And then we got the likes of Paul Parker. Paul Parker, again, he was kind of coming to that sort of end of his career, 29, so on the back end of that. Paul Parker, for me as well, not as good as Irwin, but around that time, 92, 93, I was really into football. I was really kind of like studied the team and was really started to get into those sort of stats and just kind of obsessing. And Paul Parker, for me, he little be known, he won 3 leagues. It's some of these players obviously just missed out. The ones from the 80s you sort of left, and we can talk about those ones. You just kind of missed out. But Paul Parker won 3 Premier Leagues. Like, you don't survive in a Fergie team. And pretty much the reason why he left was because we had better players come in. He was of an older time. We got him in 91 from QPR, and we sold him then in 96. So it's not like he basically sat in that team, didn't really do much, and won 3 leagues. Like, he played his part. Like, I would have said that season and the season after, where we won the leagues, he was a good part of that team, the FA Cup. He was a great player. So I've got a lot of time for him. I think, and again, a very underrated player. I'd love to get Paul Parker on here, to be honest with you. I'd just pick his brain. even if you don't necessarily know who Paul Parker is, you need to understand, like, around this time, this was a Premier League winning team. This is a team full of winners. This is a team now full of like your personality wise, these were full of strong people, and you don't survive in a team like that. Okay, he was 29, and he was there for 3 years after that. But you don't win 3 leagues in that era with what Fergie was trying to do if you're not a good player. So he was for me was amazing. Les Sealey's still on the screen for some reason, and I don't know why. So I'm going to try to get him off, transition that, and then try and get him off the screen again. Anyway, so you're all stuck with Les Sealey. He's not a bad player to be stuck with, to be fair. Rest of the team, so as you probably know, again, we've got the likes of Paul Ince was in there as well. Paul Ince was 25 at that point. Again, Ince, the governor, again, he was a great player. He didn't stay for very long after that. Stayed till about 95. Went to Inter Milan. Obviously went to Liverpool after that. But I think we missed him. This is one of the first times where Ferguson kind of sold these types of players. Ince he didn't get sold because he was bad. I just think he fell out with Fergie. Fergie was trying to do something new, and then he basically then sold him. But an absolute legend. Legend. Maybe I'm looking back in time. Kanchelskis. Interestingly enough, Kanchelskis, he was, again, you're bang on right with that. Kanchelskis was, and we'll come down to him as well. Kanchelskis, again, was Russian, amazing player. Amazing player. And then we had the likes of Parker. So Robson was still here as well. He was like 36 at that point. I'm so glad that he won the Premier League. Robson, if you don't know who he is, look back. That's all I can say. Captain, fantastic. I was fortunate to kind of see the tail end of him. I remember football sort of in the 80s, so I would have been like 1990, 89. I remember the 88 World Cup. I remember Italia 90. Robson, enough said on him, really. He is a legend of the club. Ince, I was going to call him a legend. I don't think he is. I'd love to know your opinion on that. If you think he is a legend. Ince for me wasn't, but to some people, he absolutely might. And then we've got obviously like Scholesy, obviously was 18, so technically come into the team, and then you've got the likes of like Nicky Butt come into the team. Mike Phelan was still there as well. Again, look up Mickey Phelan, part of the backroom staff for Fergie for many, many years. He used to play for the club. When he retired and went to the backroom staff, I'll always remember him as a player. For some reason, I had him as like a poster, just random poster. So you basically used to get a magazine called Shoot, right? And in it you get like posters of players. So you rip it out of the magazine and then you put these players up. And for some reason, I had Phelan up on my wall for quite some time. So again, I've got a lot of respect for Mike Phelan. Scholesy, obviously Beckham, Kanchelskis as well. Kanchelskis, like, brilliant player. you know, just he won 2 leagues as well, and I think that when he left, you know, it wasn't like he was bad. Just Ferguson wanted to do something different, wanted to do something else, and this was the era now where the decisions were being made that, yeah, you know, he was a fantastic player, but it was now about the sort of, it was about the players of now, you know, those sort of 80s players that came through. It's a bit different now again, but you know, the sort of 80s players that came through, and Kanchelskis was kind of on the back of that. Now, I'm not saying that he was old. He was 24 years old, and he played for us till he was about 26 in his prime. And Fergie decided that it was time for him to go. I was gutted when he went, but what's best for the team. And then obviously you got the likes of Lee Sharp, the Sharpie Shuffle. The Sharpie Shuffle was brilliant. I remember being at school and doing the Sharpie Shuffle. See, he knows about the shoot. Oh yeah, match as well. Absolute match. I loved match. I'm going to put that in the chat. Loved match. Yeah, and Sharpie Shuffle. You know, those were the days whereby footballers. It was the first, in my opinion. It was the sort of first of that kind of like brand. That first of like the Spice Boys. I know the Spice Girls are like after that, but you had those sorts of Spice Boys who were a bit more into cars, into a bit more into running down the pitch, like, and the Sharpie Shuffle for me. I just remember being at school and doing the Sharpie Shuffle. So you know, yeah. I look back now and I think, you know, I must have looked like a right prat, but Sharpie, I love Sharpie. Brilliant guy. Yeah, amazing player. So not a legend in my opinion of the club, but nevertheless fantastic. And then obviously you had the likes of Giggs. So Giggsy at that point was a member of the team. You know, he come through in 91-92 season, and at that point he was 19 years old, and he was an established member of the team. And Giggs, when he burst through, and people obviously now will say that, you know, he wasn't as good as players of today, and he wasn't that fast, and he didn't really do much. The guy won 13 Premier Leagues. You don't win 13 Premier Leagues, 4 FA Cups, 2 European Cups by luck. You don't play as long as he did and not be one of the best players that's ever played the game. I think people let his personal life cloud how good he was, and he was fantastic. Giggsy was just something else, and he used to terrorise people. I mean, there was a game, I can't remember, it was like one of the first games that he played. I think it was Norwich, and he absolutely tore them apart. And I mean, there was this thing that went around saying Giggsy he's been tearing teams apart since 92, and he used to mercilessly destroy teams, and just amazing player. Cantona, again, and I've said about him, you know, I can put this man back on screen. Just the legend, just the aura of this man, just the audacity to do the things that he did, his impact on the team, just the way that he used to do things. Just Cantona, just absolute legend of this club. Brian McClair and Mark Hughes. Again, McClair was not a legend, but for me, when I was a kid, you know, again, McClair won 4 Premier Leagues. This is this is the interesting thing about some of these players that people may not know about these players, and this is why. And I'm not necessarily saying me, but this is why it's important to look back at these and understand our players. That he won 4 Premier Leagues. He wasn't the most exciting of strikers. He wasn't, he wasn't the main lead. But he was a fantastic player. Like he was with us for 11 years, Scottish. Fergie loved him. I do think he probably lasted as long because Ferguson needed those players around him, those players that could just do a job when called upon, the attitude of the players, and again, you don't stay in a Ferguson squad, and people may disagree with me on that one, but you don't stay in a Fergie squad if you didn't perform. So he wouldn't let you stay in that squad if you weren't great. He would basically kick you out. And he was just an all-round fantastic player. I just really, McClair for me, again, in Match and Shoot magazine, I had all these posters on the wall. Phelan, again, which seems a bit mad. McClair as well. And, I when you listen to the older players speak, they always talk about these sorts of players. They always talk about the McClairs of the world, and they always talk about the kind of Hugheses of the world. And because they had aura about them, weren't necessarily the best players on the pitch, but they used to do things, and they would support the squad, and they were just like an O'Shea, for example. Those players you want to keep around, and he's not prolific throughout his career. He in all games, I think he played about just under 500 games and scored about 127 goals. So not prolific, but the sort of player that you want in your team. Definitely a squad player. Mark Hughes, Sparky the man, went to Barcelona for a season and then came back to us. For me, there's an iconic picture of him in that white kit. Just Sparky was he was one of my heroes. Niche Fan says, as far as Mbeumo goes, we have the most inept negotiator. Love the channel. Thank you so much, Niche Fan. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So Bobby's in the chat again. As far as Mbeumo goes, we have the most inept negotiators in the league. Either that or they're in your strategy that I, or whatever, slightly average intelligence can't comprehend. I agree. But for now, we can come back to that. I'm happy to. Let's think about some happy thoughts and how we used to do business. I am trying to be upbeat. I'm smiling because I am smiling about how we used to be. Sparky, Mark Hughes, have to say, one of my heroes. When I was a kid, I used to want to be a striker, and I wasn't bad. I was always quite quick. Sparky wasn't necessarily quick, but it was just that, and he was Welsh. So I am Welsh. I don't sound it, but being Welsh, as well with the gigs contingent, as well. Yeah, Mark Hughes, played for Barcelona, for Bayern Munich, kind of one, you don't go abroad back in them days if you are not a good player. Obviously, when he went to Chelsea, when he went to Chelsea, it wasn't necessarily towards the back end of his career. Obviously, he wasn't, prime, not prolific either, really. played 780 games, which if you think about that, that is a lot of games, right? 780 games, scoring 222 goals. It's not prolific, but some of the goals. There's a goal that he scored against City, right? So, and I think City beat us 3-1. If you've got an opportunity, put in Mark Hughes the banana kick. The banana kick that he scored against City, I think this was 1990. I think this was the last time. It was the season where Liverpool won the title for the last time. Mark Hughes is not a bicycle kick, but a banana kick, right? And he's basically straight and an absolute. Honestly, I've tried to replicate that for such a long time and never could. I completely, God knows we don't have anything positive coming out of the club. I've boycotted. I'm happy. No, I don't mind. This is your show, really. I'm happy to talk about stuff. Bobby, I was a winger for Blackburn School of Excellence. Bobby. I'm loving that, sir. That is winger. That is impressive, sir. That's awesome. I kind of wish I was that good. I basically was quick. That's all. I basically had no football IQ. Basically, all I had was basically pace. And I mean, I used to be pretty quick. I could do the 100 meters in 11 flat. Just under sometimes. So I was a sprinter, but basically no football brain. Finishing wise, you basically put it over the top. I'd sprint onto it and I'd either whack it as hard as I could. So yeah, I was never that good. But Bobby, the winger, legendary. I'm loving that completely. Niche fan as well. We can. I will do another show. Again, I'm happy to talk about the lack of window. So the 92 window, I think we pretty much got through. Let me see if I've got through. Yeah, so Sparky was one of my favourite players. One of my heroes. Fantastic play. So looking at the outs of the windows. So the next player, I'll give you a clue and let's see if you can get it in the chat. So this was a player who basically saved Fergie. Okay, so Fergie went on a run of 11 games beaten. He didn't win a game for 11. This was 99 season, and we couldn't win a game. And basically, the legend goes that Fergie was going to get sacked. You know, the fan base weren't happy. He was going to get sacked. You know, he was giving him time and whatever else. Bobby, you broke your leg in 3 places and didn't progress, mate. That is 99. Oh, so Jesus, so you were proper era then. 95 is like is really an amazing time. So I'm sorry to hear that. That is not good. Yeah, what could have been. And just think you're here with us now. You know. So if you were in that excellence team, then so do you know any like famous players? That'd be cool. But yeah, that is bad luck, painful. I can only imagine the sort of agony and pain, but not just physically, but the mental side of it, mate. And no words on that, buddy. I think that is gutting. And 30 years later, Jesus Christ. Yeah. But I hope you've recovered. And Sutton and Shiva, honestly, honestly, busting out them two, give Wilcox. Do you know what? That's a bloody good shout there. That's a really, really, really good shout. I reckon you do need to give him a call. Here you go. So Bobby can be our little inroad. Maybe you sort of need to give him like a little ask and see. Sutton and Shearer though, Jesus. I mean that is amazing. I mean that is unbelievable. I feel honoured to have you in the chat. I'm honoured to have you all in the chat, of course. But we've got an old school baller in the chat, and niche fan and Danny B. I love you guys as well, but we have our very own baller from the 90s in the chat, so we definitely need to bask in this. I wonder how many other chats have legends in their chat. Not many. So let's see who can get this one, if we can. So this was a player that saved Fergie. My football days are well and truly over. I think mine ended when I was about 12, to be honest. Mark Robbins is the man. One of those players that... So he was an under 18 player, under 21 players who came through. So the good thing about our club, which I'm really proud of, or was, is that we always brought youth through. And we always had them in the matchday squad. And Robbins was one of those players who, Fergie tried to bring through, one of those sort of 80s players. And he basically, as the legend goes, he saved Ferguson's job. Fergie basically was on the brink. The fan base was calling for his head. And Robbins steps up and scores the winning goal in the FA Cup replay, or it was against Forest. And from then on, basically, they went on to win the FA Cup against Palace. They won the replay against Palace, and then basically the rest is after that. Robbins in that season, in the 92 season, again, even though Fergie he saved him, he wasn't up to the job really. He was a forward, never prolific for the club. Scored 17 goals in 68 games. Just one of those players who I think was good to have around. And then when Fergie started to kind of tinker with that team and then started to kind of get these sorts of players out, Robbins again, played for all kinds of clubs. Never a prolific striker. He was a forward player. But yeah, if you don't know, I know this player because of what he did, and I remember from around that time the goal, because I remember my uncle celebrating it completely. If it wasn't for this player, then potentially, our history would have completely changed. So I hope he comes up on the screen, because I don't know what OBS is doing. Fingers crossed. Now the other player, I don't know if he's a cult hero. Again, one of these players that I liked because of the goals that he scored. One goal in particular, I can't remember who it was against, but he absolutely scored an absolute banger of a goal. And that was Neil Webb. Signed from Forest for about $1.5 million back in 1989. So that kind of 80s, the end of the 80s, it's kind of like player. Sold him in 92 for about 125. So we made a little bit of a loss on him, but it wasn't bad. Again, a right kind of midfielder, a kind of old school right kind of midfielder player. I like Neil Webb. I just remember him for that goal, and again, I had a poster of him on my wall. I remember having this like poster. I think it was like the 91, 92 season. It was that season just before we won the league, and I loved that poster. And the moment I put that poster up was when we started to win the league. So I'm taking credit for that, because this poster brought me amazing luck. And yeah, I'm claiming that this poster was the reason why we've done as well as we have. Yeah, Neil Webb, an important play for me, because I liked the player. Didn't really necessarily do a lot as such. Technically won a Premier League as well, so he did actually win a league. But he did get sold in that 92-93 season. But again, I love that player. Important for me. And then one of the last ones for me is, and I had no idea about this player. It's interesting. You need to pin it up behind you. Bobby's long gone, mate. Bobby is absolutely long gone, my friend. I don't know what happened to it. I might try and find it again, because I'm sure you can find them, and I'm going to put it up again, because that was the poster for me that started it all. OBS as well as being I don't know what OBS is doing. So as I'm trying to put these players up, it's basically just not doing anything. So I'm going to try to transition that out. Honestly. Right. Let's try another one. So the last player, I couldn't have told you who he was. I had no idea. So Donaghy, first name Mal. I don't remember this player at all. Even though I sort of had the poster on the wall, I started to follow the team. We got him from Luton for about 600k, and we sold him to Chelsea in 92 for about 150k. I genuinely don't know, and these are the sorts of players whereby honestly OBS is absolutely doing me dirty here. Anyway, I can see a picture on my screen, but OBS is obviously. Oh, there you go. So I think hopefully you're going to be able to see this picture. So Donaghy, for me, one of those. I guess if you followed us around that time, he could be one of those sort of cult players that you used to like. For me, like Paul Parker is that for me, but I just don't remember this player. I can't even say anything on him, because I don't know. But he made 119 appearances for the club, so that's not too shabby, really. I feel bad that I don't remember him as a player. Around that time, maybe he was in and out of the squad, but he's a player that I don't remember really. So I do feel bad in that one, but you can't know all players. I was like 9, 10, so that's my sort of excuse, and I'm sticking to that one. Yeah, so that was the 90s. So that was a 92, 93 team squad, players, ins and outs. as a window, I thought, looking back at it now, because back then, even though I thought our team was fantastic. I mean, added these players in. You know, Cantona for me was the one. If you look back and you compare it to Windows now, you know, it maybe it wouldn't be considered as an amazing window. If I had to rate the window out of 10, and kind of looking at players sold, but looking at the team as well, because we have to look at the team. Obviously, we didn't know the class of 92 were going to be as good as they were, but you know, when you got the likes of Giggs, McClair, Hughes, Schmeichel in goal, you know, I don't think we needed to add anything to it. The only thing we needed to add to it, in my opinion, was a scorer, a legend, and Cantona was that. So I personally would give that window a good solid 9.5. Should I give it a 10? I'd have to give it a 10, not because we signed amazing players, but that was the beginning. That was the catalyst. You know, the players that we brought through, not the players that we necessarily signed, but we did bring in the class of 92. Fergie had the foresight to do that. Not all of them play; they all were on loan, and then they came in after that. But you know, I think as a window and as a complete package, I've got to give it a 10, really. One of my not a window to set fans alight with the amount of players that were signed, but definitely a window of an era. So Bobby says, go back to the chat. Bobby says, I was a big Lee Sharp fan, 100%. Sharpie Shuffle. Like him and Giggs, you know, I think, as I've said, were like the Spice Boys, you know, absolute. I love Sharpie. Sharpie was fantastic. Niche fan, may I ask if this is therapy for you, given the awful state of the club is now? If not, I thank you for doing it. Anyways, I'm going to try it and close my eyes and dream that we're in the glories. This is absolute therapy for me. Even if I wasn't doing this particular show, and I try to do a show like most days, the therapy for me is this, thinking about our older days. And this is what I want to do. I don't think other channels do this enough. That's just my opinion. I don't see the reason why we can't look back on these days, because you can learn so much. I'm not saying that this is all we've got, and it doesn't mean that we can't move forward, because you can learn things from the past. And I'm not saying that the past was the best, but you can still learn things from the past and advance in them, and improve the way that you do things. This is therapy for me, talking to you guys in the chat. You know, this is what I love, you know, debating football, finding out about things about people in the chat, you know, like fantastic things. You know, I'd love to know where you guys are from, you know, and it's really good to talk about, you know, things from the past, things from now. Now, I think everything's important. I think we need to always talk, and we need to debate, and we need to, you know, I'm one of the things I wanted to do on here was open it up a little bit, right? So I know people get frustrated when we seem to talk about the same thing, but I think that's important, because we need to keep on to this ownership and this base to kind of like, we need to move things along, right? But there's also nothing wrong in us, particularly now, is Ireland living in the States. Thank you very much for joining from the States, Danny B. I love that. That's amazing stuff. So you got to be a big fan of Keane, Irwin, you know, all those boys, legends. You know, Ireland had some absolute amazing plays in the day. I remember Ireland USA 94, Houghton scoring that goal against Italy. Houghton was an absolute Staunton. fantastic players. Ireland had an amazing team then as well. So yeah, a lot of respect for you boys. This is therapy for me, and I as much I could do this all day. I could talk to you guys today. This is what makes me happy. This is sort of like my happy place. Football has been my sport for 38 years, 39 years now, and this is something I think we need to do as a community. Yeah, Houghton Screamer, legendary goal. I love that goal so much. For me, this is we need something right now, and if this is a little bit of something that we can come together on, agree and look back, I don't think it's a bad thing. So I can't believe we've been on for over an hour. It's always the pleasure is absolutely mine. Talking to this community, because that's what it is now. Just you guys are fantastic, and I want to do one of these again tomorrow. So tomorrow I want to do the 93 McGrath as well. Yeah. Oh, McGrath was he played for us as well, but he was part of that drinking culture. So I think McGrath, brilliant player. Didn't he go to Villa? I think. Brilliant player. But Ferguson got rid of him because of that culture that we sort of had. But again, McGrath was a beast, great player. However, I think the younger typically don't understand the point of looking back in our past to learn lessons. It all fell apart once Ferguson, and I think that's an absolute brilliant point. And I will come back to that as well. Space Cowboy just realised that we spent over $6 million on unwanted player wages since the transfer window open. What's the opposite of therapy? I don't know. Torture, sadness. I want to create a space every day that we can all come look back on the past, and to go back on that point as well. This is it, right? You have to look back at the past for clues about the future. And I'm not saying that everything we did in the past was right, and I'm not saying that everything we did in the past was applicable to now. But what was it? If you look at the managers of today and the successful ones, there's this appetite to win. Ferguson had it. Like, he had this appetite to win, to be the best. There's things winners do. To a level, there are things that winners do, and you need a team full of winners. You need a team full of who will basically break down brick walls for you. Who will, and it's true. You can have all the skills in the entire world. And there's plenty of players out there who have skills and they're amazing players, but your attitude doesn't change. Those are the players. Is that mentality? I would rather take mentality players, and maybe that's a cliche thing to say, but players of a mentality. Those are the ones that you need, and of course you need flair and skill. But because then what that does is it infects everybody else. You have winners. You have standards. And that's the bit that I think we need to look back on. Is we need standards again. We need players who will fight for each other. You can have a little fight. You can have like a binding, but everything is kept in house and everything is for the best of the team. And we need a coach. Amarin, is he that guy? He appears to be a guy who does want to kick people out of the squad, but he also has favourites within that squad as well. So I Fergie had them as well. So I think Ruben wise, I think he can learn, and I do hope that he does look back on the past. And that's the one thing I want to see this year is mentality of these players shift and only time will absolutely tell on that. So, guys, I'm going to go. Love this. I'm going to try and do one of these tomorrow as well. I'm going to do the next season. I'm going to do, obviously, 93, 94 season. And if you've got time, come here and we can talk about it. We can forget the woes of 2025 and this window being absolute dross. I like that, Niche Fan. I'm open, 100% open to do that. I think that's a fantastic idea. I've got some paper here with some notes. I'm going to write that in my notes, and I think we can probably bring that in tomorrow as well. An all-time United 11. Oh, so could be some good debates on that one. So, Niche Fan, I'm going to give you credit on that one because I think that's a fantastic idea. Space Cowboy says, the main thing we had before was respect, both on and off the field. The opposite is true today, and the reason why we get smashed at home and in the transfer market. I think I want to leave it on that because I think that is 100% right. Respect, not only for themselves, but respect for the fans, respect for this club, respect for we had players who died for this club, and it wasn't like they died outside of football. They died on the way to a match or coming home from a match. These players died literally playing for this club, and there's not many other teams that can, and there have been other awful things that have happened around grounds and that kind of stuff, and that is awful. But when we're talking about our club, when you've got players who want to sit on a contract, and I get it, but when you look back at this team, the youth of this team, we had players literally die for this club, and this club could have folded. This club could have gone any which way, but yet we come back, and that's what we need today. We need respect of our history, and this is why this is so important to look back and those players that came back. But then respect for the fans. You know, as much as I'd love to go to kind of like games here and there, you know, I hold my hands up to these match-going fans. You know, they are the lifeblood. They are the ones that go every single game. They go home and away. And respect for those fans, respect for us, and the amount of money in the past that I've spent on shirts, that my emotions that go into it. Like ever since I was about 7, and you used to have texts on the TV. And the habit is still not. Even if we don't play at 3 o'clock, I'm always checking the scores, right? And I've been doing that for a very, very long time. And this club is so important to me, and that's why it breaks my heart now. And you know that may be too much for some people, but when you're passionate about, you know, this club was here before my wife. This club was here before my children. I love my children more than the world itself. But this is something that's been with me before wife, kids, some friends. You know, this has always been the thing that's been really important to me. And to see what's happening to this club now, this is why we need to keep talking about this. And we need to keep pushing them on it. Nishvan says, 100% agree with everything you said. We were the Omni team that players would sacrifice themselves for. We had a culture. We did, and alas, it's no more. Sad times. I will. If anything breaks, I'll come back on today. We need some positive news. I'll come back tomorrow with another one of these shows. Hopefully OBS will behave itself, because I want to make sure that the pictures are up there, and for us to talk and debate. If I can fit it in, Niche Fan, I would, and we can probably end it with an all-time 11 squad. So get your thinking caps on. for that one. I probably will put a couple of random ones in there as well. Not necessarily the sort of the way that I see it for me is who's had the biggest impact on me, and yeah. You can't change your football club. It's true. You can't. No matter how much you want to change your club, you can't. So thank you so much for the chat. Absolutely amazing chat as always. Hope you can come back tomorrow. If anything does break, I will come on. This is your show. So let me know the things that you want to do. And niche fan. I can't wait for that one. Save it, please. Save it, because I can't wait to listen to that. So I'll be back tomorrow, if not today. Have an amazing rest of your day, your evening, morning, whatever you're doing. And I will see you very soon. So take care all. Thank you so much.